Welcome back. Today, just like in my previous video, I hope to analyze some of my recent daily games on chess.com. In that previous video, I only made it through one game. Hopefully I can do more than that today, but I have pulled up the first game that I wanted to look at here. Again, I tried to go straight to the analysis board, but once again, it ran the game review, and I only have one per day, so that's a little frustrating. I wish there was a way to go straight to the analysis board. But since we're here, you can see from this list of mistakes and the mistakes and inaccuracies that I did not play perfectly, only 79%. But it does look like all of my misses and mistakes were after I was ahead and I never trailed in this game. So even though that's pretty encouraging, and even though the computer estimates I played like a 1500, I'm sure I can still learn something from some of these moves. So let's switch to the analysis tab here. It looks like my opponent made a bunch of inaccuracies early in the game, and I was able to, for the most part, capitalize on that, except for a miss and an inaccuracy here early. By the time of my actual mistakes late in the game, I was really far ahead. I'm guessing that's where I missed a mating sequence or something like that, but we're about to find out. I opened with c4, which is the English opening, as I have been doing. Here, my opponents do this quite a bit. Once they see c4, they're aiming for this d5 push, and it always feels a little slow to me, but I see that a lot. Sometimes I just see the e6 and the d5 immediately, but a lot of opponents like to play the c6 as well. I think that transposes to the Caro-Kann defense. So instead of going about my regular English, which I normally play g3 here in fianchetto, I went ahead and played d4, trying to exercise control over the center, knowing that they're about to play d5 and I'm going to lose that c-pawn. So that's what I did, and when they play that, okay, it transposes to the Queen's Gambit declined semi-Slav defense. I knew it transposed to something. I'm curious as to whether I'm supposed to take here. All right, I was pretty sure that I was not supposed to take here. E3 is the best move, and I think that's because, that defends the c-pawn with the bishop, plus defends my d-pawn, and gives the knight a place to go here in just a little bit. Okay, so I did right there. And just a couple of moves later, my opponent played f5, which was counted as a mistake, but I wasn't sure whether it was a mistake or not. I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to take this pawn or push this pawn forward to threaten the bishop, or push this pawn or take that pawn or take this pawn. There's a lot of choices here. One advantage of playing daily games is that you are allowed by rule to look at the opening book. And I do that pretty often in the first 5 or 6 moves of a game if it's an unfamiliar position, and so I was curious as to whether or not this was a book move, but when I look at the Masters database, it says there's no games in this position found in the database. When that happens, that usually tells me that my opponent has messed up. Not always, but usually these early positions have been reached by masters long before any of us play them, and usually masters played some of the best moves. Not always, but usually. And so the fact that we come out of book when they play this, that tells me something. I chose to push the e-pawn forward, and that turns out to be the best move here. Forces their bishop to go somewhere. They probably are going to come over here to pin my knight. It's the best move. It's what my opponent played. But as usual, I don't know that I'm ahead. I thought I could force, this trade here really quickly, so I played a3. Was that my best? That was not my best move. Now I'm supposed to take the d-pawn or play knight to h3. That's what Stockfish might do. I'm not going to play that unless they have a queen sitting right here or something. Actually, if they had a queen sitting right there, I could take it. But you know what I mean. I'm rarely, if ever, going to play that. Anyway, I did push a3. It's their best move to take, and of course, I have to take back. I'm not sure how my opponent would have known that their best move is c5, but their second best move was knight to e7, which was counted as inaccurate. I used to miss these diagonals all the time. And I almost missed it here even after I saw it, because when I saw it, I thought it would be pretty easy for them to just push the g-pawn, and then what would I do? But I thought if they pushed the g-pawn, maybe I could squeeze in here and, come around this way, but I wasn't sure. And I also thought I could probably just bring my queen back someplace, right? If I go here and they push the g-pawn, I can just come back. I wasn't sure where, but that's the move that I was most scared of. But I went ahead and played this anyway. I thought if they don't push the g-pawn, they have to move their king, which ruins their right to castle. Now, surprisingly, the g-pawn is not their best move. I'm curious as to why. What is so bad about pushing this? Okay, it does say that I would move forward, and then they would play c5, and then I would come in here, so they would have to move the rook over. Wait, why wouldn't they just move it over one? Oh, I guess it wouldn't matter how far they moved it over. Then I could just take this. Actually, it says I wouldn't. I would put my bishop in here, threatening mate. Really? Well, my opponent must have seen that, and they played a move that I didn't even consider. I thought if they didn't play that, they were going to move their king, but they blocked with the knight. But the knight's not threatening my queen, so I thought I could leave my queen there for a second. I very briefly considered putting the bishop here on g5, which would threaten their queen, but then I thought their queen would just move over here and threaten this pawn, which is a fork, so I didn't want that. But I also thought I might be able to bring my own knight in here and perhaps go to h4, which would hit their knight. which they're going to have trouble defending. So I played knight to f3. My opponent's absolute best move here is knight to d7, and that's what they played. I'm surprised they found that, but I'm not sure how that can help. It can't go here. I guess it can go over here to f8 to defend that knight. But so often in my post-game analyses, Stockfish has said to start pushing the h and g pawns, and I thought I could just push my g pawn now because that pawn's kind of, bugging me a little bit. If they take, of course, I can just take it back, and then I'd have an open file for the rook. And if they don't take, I would take them. And when they took me, I can get that pawn. So I played g4, even though it's not one of my top moves here. And my opponent definitely was supposed to continue the path of this knight over here to f8 to defend the knight that's on g6. Or get the queen out of here now. I'm not sure why there. I don't know what that would help. But they castled. Well, castling allows me to immediately threaten checkmate. I wanted to put my knight in here on g5, which threatens checkmate down here because they've castled. Because from there, my knight would be, guarding both of those 7th rank squares so the king couldn't escape. I thought the only defense they could mount if I played knight to g5 was h6. And if they played h6, I have a fork right in here on e6, which also undefends this pawn. And to be honest, the reason that I thought of this instead of this, partially it was because they castled and I realized my queen's pointed here. But the other thing is all the times that Stockfish has said I should put a knight over here someplace, and I never know why. So since I already had the knight out, and I remembered that, it's pretty easy to put 2 and 2 together. I'm threatening mate. If they push h6, which I assumed that they would, I get this pawn, which is a fork. So I played knight to g5. h6 is their best move. They can also play rook to f6, which I guess gives the king a chance to get out. Or over here. Sorry, they can't go to f7, but they can go to f8 if the rook moves. They did play h6, which I kind of thought that they would, and now the knight is free. I don't know if I considered that or not. I saw this pawn over here was free, and it was a fork of the queen and the rook. My best move is to take the knight. That makes sense. Okay. But I played here. They only have a couple of good options. I'm not sure why queen to a5 is the best option. I guess it's because it threatens this fork down here. But it says if they played that, I would just play bishop to e2 to keep them from taking my rear c pawn. I'm not sure why e8 isn't listed, although I guess then I could fork over here, and when they moved the queen, I could get the rook. Maybe. I would have considered moving to e8 because it protects this knight, but yeah, I guess that would have opened up this other fork. But they came to e7, which was their second best move, and the knight is still free, and I still missed it. My second best move is to take here. Oh, well, the whole reason I put my knight in there was because of the fork. So I took the rook, which was counted as a miss. Let's back up. If I play there, it says their best move would be to take this pawn with their knight, which would open up the bishop's attack. But I would take their knight, then they would take my knight, and then I would just play bishop to e3. Well, I probably wouldn't have seen all that. If I had played here, and they had played here, and I'd taken their knight, and they had taken my knight, probably would have taken there, but I don't know, maybe that's not a good idea. So I don't feel bad about playing this one, but I probably should have seen that their knight was just free, whereas this is a trade. It's just an exchange, whereas this was a completely free piece. And here again, their best move is not to take that knight back there. Their best move is to give up this knight or my e-pawn. Well, I wouldn't have seen that either if I was my opponent. I probably would have taken here, but I would have taken with the other one. Knight d captures f8. Yeah, that's what I would have done, is captured with the d knight and left this one here, because then the two knights would protect each other. But they took with the front knight, which according to Stockfish allows me to play bishop to d2. No, bishop to e2. Okay, I don't get that. I figured they're going to take this pawn soon if I don't take it, take theirs now. So I took theirs now. That leaves me ahead. Again, they're supposed to take my e-pawn. Or play knight to h7, which I'm not sure what that does, except maybe comes in here. But yeah, I don't know what knight to h7 does. Or maybe knight to h7 is meant to add an extra defender to the f6 square if I push my f-pawn further. But my opponent played knight to f6, which not only surprised me at the time, but it struck me as a pretty good move. I have no idea it's an inaccuracy, but I can't take it because that pawn is pinned, and it's a threat on my queen, which encourages my queen to move. I'm supposed to come back here because that pawn's under threat. Okay, that makes sense. It says to go to h3 or f3 to defend my f-pawn, which is now under attack. Okay, now I'm surprised this move wasn't counted as a mistake or inaccuracy because I didn't see that my f-pawn was hanging, and I came back all the way here, so they take my f-pawn. But their knight's hanging because now this pawn isn't pinned. That was honestly the reason that I came back here. So now that they took this pawn, I get their whole knight, and I'm threatening their queen two different ways. It is their best move to take the pawn, not to trade queens here, and my opponent figured that out. I knew I was doing well at this point because, well, I'm up 5 points of material. Not only did I go up the exchange with the rook for the knight, but then I got their other knight for a pawn. But I don't know what to do. I know that these two pawns have been staring at each other for a long time, figured that they could take mine at any time, but if they did take mine, I would get it with check, which is probably why I wasn't supposed to take it. I was supposed to play rook to g1, but I went ahead and took that pawn, assuming that they would take back, and then I don't have the check. But their actual best move is queen to g6. Since I didn't put my rook here, they can prevent me from putting the rook there. And this bishop's going to have a hard time getting out. They're also very quickly going to try to figure out a way to put this rook here since my queen is in the way. But my opponent took back here. Again, I'm supposed to move my rook over, but I didn't want to put it there just yet. I wanted to get this bishop out, and I was actually considering castling. Also, that bishop would aim at this pawn, and it would aim at that pawn, you know, if they somehow found a way to protect this one. But eventually, I might be able to get one or the other of them. So I put this bishop here. This is one of my opponent's best moves. And of course, they left that d-pawn undefended. I don't know if they could have defended it. I guess they could have with the bishop or the queen. But I went ahead and took it. That turned out to be my best move. Their best move, they're in check. They have to move their king, was to go up here to h7. Now I am supposed to castle or play f3. Well, I wasn't sure about that. I thought it was time to get the other bishop out. And also, you know, I wanted my queen and king, which are lined up here, to not be subject to this. They can't play that right now because I would just take the rook, but I know that they're going to be able to play it eventually. And also I have 2 pieces that I haven't used yet. Actually 3 pieces that I haven't used yet. But that seemed like a really good place for the bishop. It's not my best move, but it's okay. But now they can bring the rook over. So this bishop's pinned, but it's defended, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm supposed to play queen to b5, which, oh, okay. Not only does it threaten that pawn, but it threatens that rook. It says if I played that, they would put the rook on c8. If I played queen to b5, they would put the rook here, not there. And I wouldn't take that pawn. Oh, is it because of this pawn is hanging? It says I would bring my king up to defend my c pawn, which is a backward pawn right now. Okay, so this was inaccurate. It's also probably not obvious at this point, but I'm putting a bunch of pieces on dark squares. My queen, my king, one of my bishops, the other bishop can't go to a dark square. He's handicapped in that way. But almost all my pieces and pawns are on dark squares because they have a light squared bishop, so that bishop can't see most of my pieces. That was the idea of this move, but my opponent played their best move because this bishop's pinned now. I should have played bishop to f3, okay. Oh, maybe trying to slide it back in here so the front bishop wouldn't be pinned? Well, I did move that bishop, there's a free pawn, isn't there? So I took the free pawn, lost part of my advantage. My opponent's best move is to go to g6, again probably preventing the rook from coming over, or f7, which threatens my bishop, and then I would just bring it back, where I should have put it last turn. But they checked me here, which at the time I thought was a pretty scary move. I have no idea. I know I'm ahead a little bit because I'm up on material, but that looked like a pretty good move. It's defended. I have to move my king. I don't know where to move it. I can move over. I can move up. I can come this way. All of those are light squares, which their bishop can check me on. I thought I had a better chance on f1 because I thought if they checked me over here on h3, I could bring this bishop back, and they wouldn't want to do the trade just yet. So that's why I went that way. Don't know it's a great move. It's not their best move to check me, but they did. And since they did, it is my best move to block with my bishop. Sorry, it says that was only okay. Okay, Stockfish here says it's by far my best move. It's, significantly better than my next best move, but the game review didn't realize that. They're supposed to move the queen up 1 to defend both of those pieces, but they brought that one back, which is a mistake. I thought I could prevent them from doing something over here again. I didn't know exactly how they were going to do this, but I thought when they had their bishop here and I challenged it, I thought maybe they were going to put their queen here to protect it. And I was still worried about that because I can't defend that square. So I pushed this h-pawn. I had no idea it was my best move, but that allows my rook to defend some of these squares. It also allows me to try for this trade here in just a second. The engine wants to put the rook on b8, I assume, to come down this way, or just play a5. My opponent didn't find that. They moved the king. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just went and checked them here, but I should have played rook to h2 with the idea of playing king to g1, really. That's what it says. But I checked them, they moved out of check, and I was supposed to bring it back. This is where Stockfish wanted this bishop, but I went here because the knight. Now, I'm not sure why, but the engine wants their queen on c6, and it says I would just let them have this bishop. It says I would just move my king and let them have the bishop. Oh, because it would be a fork. That's why that's so bad. Okay, this mistake I definitely understand. I don't think that I would have found that either because I'm still not very good at seeing these. I don't even know what you call those angles. It's been a long time since I had math. Because I think if they had played that, I just would have taken the knight. And then they would have taken my rook with check. And when I got out of check, they would have gotten my other rook. But yeah, I bet I would have missed that. So yeah, if my opponent had found that, I might have lost this game because I might not have seen that they were threatening the rook. Would have taken here, they would have taken the rook, and they would have gotten the other rook, and then I would have gotten their bishop. So they would have a rook and a queen, and I would have a queen and 2 bishops. Wow. Well, I'm glad they didn't see it. They saw that I had 2 pieces attacking the knight, so they moved the queen over. I assumed this was, aiming here. And I should have played bishop to b5. Oh, to attack the rook? They would have come over here to attack my bishop, and I would have left it there and played h5. Really? It says they would have got out by moving their queen back to h7. Then I would have taken their knight. They would have taken my knight with check. And I don't know what would have happened after that. I guess I just would have had to move out of check. Okay, well, I'm glad I didn't play that because that looks like I would have lost that. I played h5 now, which apparently is really bad. Oh, because they still have this. Oh my goodness. And again, I would have to notice that my rook was under attack. That's why I needed to play this, so that they didn't have that fork. Okay, I had to play this before that because playing h5 allows them the fork. If I play this first, they bring the rook over, then I play h5 and they move the queen back. I don't know, I still don't understand that entire line because it still looks like I have pieces hanging here. Oh no, I wouldn't have the bishop hanging because I would have taken here, but I would have been in check. That's really complex. But anyway, this is a miss for them, but I do notice, that I have only 2 pieces attacking this knight and they have 2 pieces defending it. But I found a way to add another attacker to the knight, which was bringing this rook over. I had no idea it was my best move. And again, I know I'm ahead on material, but I don't know how to finish this off. My opponent's best move is to give up the knight for this pawn, and it says I would take it with the bishop, and then play rook to f8, which would pin my bishop to my king after their bishop moves. But it looks like they're going to lose the knight anyway, so I guess I understand that. My opponent didn't think about picking up a pawn on the knight's way out, so they just brought this in here to attack my rook. That didn't help anything, right? Because now I just get to take the knight, and if they take my rook, I get their queen. So I took the knight, and they took my rook, and I took their queen, and I guess they hadn't noticed that my bishop was pointed there, even though their queen and bishop had been pointed here. But anyway, they resigned at this point. And I think I understand at least some of my mistakes. I especially understand the problem with the bishop because their queen could have come over here and forked those 2 things. So going back there, I should have just brought it back or played king to g1. Okay, that makes sense. Because just like in puzzles, in a game I should be asking myself, what's my opponent going to play if I play here? And maybe if I looked around a little bit, I would see the possibility of the fork. That one's hard to see though, because right now I'm guarding that square before I move the bishop. So I don't think their queen would move here. I'm still working on that. It takes a lot of practice apparently, especially if you don't learn this part as a child. And I've summarized this idea as when you move a piece, it's not where it was anymore, which sounds kind of dumb, but when I move this piece, it's not where it was anymore, so it's no longer guarding c6. It just looks like right now that it's guarding c6, so the queen won't move there. It's a fascinating thing that I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, imagining that this bishop is not on this diagonal anymore, because it's on this diagonal. I think even if I had seriously asked myself what will they play after this, I might not have seen that because of that exact problem. But anyway, I do understand the mistake, especially, once the computer showed me. All right, but this all came back to my opponent playing f5. And I still would have been ahead if I had taken here, but I'm curious, if I had taken on f5, how bad would that have been? That would have been worse. They could have put the knight here, but if they'd put the knight there, I just would have taken again, wouldn't I? I don't know. Okay, well, I'm glad I saw the best move here, which was to come forward, and then after this, I'm honestly really surprised that a3 is my best move. But I think part of the idea is that I can't play this yet because here they can block with the g-pawn, and if they need to, they can always bring this bishop back. But when I play a3, it forces the bishop off that diagonal. It can't go back anymore. They can either take or go backward. If they go backward, they might end up getting trapped. So they take, and now the bishop can't come back anymore. So when they put this knight here, queen to h5 check becomes my best move. I'm glad I saw that. I am never ever sure when I am supposed to play the queen to e5 check, h5 check, or the queen to a4 check when that's available. But I like to think I'm getting better at it since I found it in this game. Once again, that took a little longer than expected, but I'm happy that I won, and I'm happy that my mistakes came after I was ahead and they didn't put me all the way back. I think I do understand most of them. I think I got lucky here a few times finding the best moves, but maybe going over these analyses after the game, like I'm doing here, helps to reinforce to me that those were the best moves, so that in similar situations, I'll know to play them in the future, hopefully, especially if I understand why they were good. As always, I appreciate you spending your time here, and I'll see you next time.